right, 10:02 on a Friday. It's the Friday Football Feast. PA is out. Dave Sinykin in the big chair today. Brett Blakemore with me. A quick U.S. Open update. Scotty Scheffler 2 over today through 12. He's 3 over now for the tournament. The cut line's +4. So Scotty's kind of, dancing with the devil a little bit. We'll see what he's got the final 6. McIlroy 2 over today. He's dropped to 3 under par for the tournament. Catley has yet to tee off. Xander Schauffele making a move. He's up to 3 under, just 2 shots back, also through 12. DeChambeau's 2 under. Finau and Tyrell Hatton 2 under. And Sergio is next at 1 under. He has not teed off yet today. Oberg and Catley yet to play. They have afternoon tee times. We'll keep you updated on round 2, the U.S. Open at Pinehurst number 2. At this time, we welcome our one guest that we have set up for today. Always great to catch up with our guy, Lavelle E. Neal the third, who joins us. Lavo, how we doing? How's your summer? Although summer starts next week, but how's it treating us so far?
Well, okay. When you started talking about the golf, I had to scroll down and check my my fantasy team to see how I was doing, and it's not doing very well. So,
who you got?
And it's weird because usually the way the U.S. Open is designed, they try to make that course as hard as possible. So the winner was like -2 or -3.
Right.
-5 out of the first round. I was stunned that someone could put up a number like that, especially when all the indications were that the greens were rolled so low that it was like putting on your kitchen floor. But guys were able to figure out a way to get it done, man. So other than that, no, summer's going well. I don't know if you were aware of this, but my book, The History of the Twins, is dropped on Tuesday.
I did see you tweet about that. It's a very fetching cover. I like the artwork. It looks good. First of all, tell us what prompted this. How long has it been in the works?
Well, it started in February of 2023. I was Triumph Books, who they publish a lot of sports related topics, and they contacted me about doing the history of the Twins. But at that time, they already did a history of the Red Sox, a history of the Yankees, and a history of Alabama football. And I think during the project, there's one out on the New York Rangers hockey team. There's one out in the Cubs. So this is kind of like a series of coffee table books. Basically, that's how it was explained to me. So basically, it's a curated history of the Twins. So I went back and did a lot of research, did a bunch of interviews with a lot of people from the past, and I pretty much spent all last summer. I think I golfed once all last year, and that was Randy Shaver's charity golf tournament. I spent most of my time at libraries and at the Minnesota Historical Society just looking up Twins history. And basically going back to it, I found evidence as far back as 1952 when people were talking here about bringing Major League Baseball to Minnesota. So I kind of wrote about that process. And then I had free reign over the chapters. So it kind of got broken up into sections. I wrote a chapter each on the Metrodome, Met Stadium, and Target Field, and I wrote a chapter about all the studs out of St. Paul, Molitor, Winfield, Morris, and Joe Mauer. Wrote about the 87 team, the 91 team. Wrote about the 2020 season because it was just something that hopefully we never have to go through again. From a human and just from a sporting perspective, and wrote about just the great players, like Cott, Oliva, Killebrew, Puckett, all those guys. So it ended up being a pretty good read, a bunch of essays there. And Triumph Books has been good to me as far as giving me time to write this book, and the editing process was great. And so it landed on shelves on Tuesday. And you can also buy it on Amazon. You can also go to Barnes & Noble. On the website or at the store. I have already scheduled 3 book signings at the Barnes & Noble off Lake Street, the one at Harmar, and the one in Edina coming up this summer. So I'll be there signing books and kind of talking about the process. And I got a couple of private signings as well. So and I'm trying this, because I know Twins fans are from the 5-state region here. So I'm actually in conversations about trying to do book signings in Fargo and book signing maybe in Duluth. and hopefully maybe even Sioux Falls. We'll see. So it was a hell of a process. I don't know if I'd do it again just because of the time it took to write that. They asked me to write 80,000 words, and I got 2 weeks before the deadline, and I called the editor and said, well, I have 80,000 words written, but I'm not done with the book yet. And they're like, okay, you can have a couple more weeks. So I ended up sending over 93,000 words on the history of the Twins. So I hope it's a good read. I hope it's informative. And Father's Day's coming up here.
Well,
and if you're struggling to find a gift for your dad on Father's Day, why not give him a nice book on the history of the Minnesota Twins?
Well, I would think that's the timing, right? You release it Father's Day week. You're begging people. I mean, how many ties can Dad have? How many putters does he need? How many golf? This is the ideal Father's Day gift, especially for fathers who can't watch their favorite team play right now. It gets them closer to their favorite team. I think the timing is impeccable, frankly.
Exactly. Well, in the book game, the 2 biggest days to release books are Father's Day and Christmas. So I think there was a method to the madness here. Is
this the first book that you have ever written? Have you penned one before?
No, this is the first one. It was quite a process, like I said. Like I said, I don't know if I'd do it again. It was just the time. It was crazy. I like to, in my acknowledgments, I thanked a lot of people who allowed me the ability to write this book. Like I had 2 friends who each owned a cabin in northern Minnesota. So I, went up north for like a week at a time to, hammer out a few chapters. I stayed in a hotel for a week. I wrote about 30% of the book on the second floor of the South St. Paul Library, in the little cubicles they had set up there. So I came up with different ways to try to get this thing done.
Is there one nugget, one piece of information that you learned that you didn't know that stands out, or one particular interview with a subject that maybe went beyond what you had expected going in?
Okay. Well, just during the research process, when I went to the Minnesota Historical Society in St. Paul, by the way, I would recommend everyone to check out that place. It's got a lot of great information in it. I walked into the research room and asked them, can you just bring me everything you have on Twins history? And so they brought out like those, those law boxes that carry all these files. They brought out a couple of those on a cart. And so I'm going through it, and I realized it was Wheelock Whitney's stuff that he donated to the society. I remember Wheelock Whitney was behind the effort to bring baseball to Minnesota. So I'm going through this stuff. I'm pulling out this one folder, and there's letters and correspondence between Wheelock Whitney and Branch Rickey. And I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm sitting there like reading this stuff and reading handwritten messages from like Wheelock's wife to Branch Rickey's wife, and all these letters with guidance and suggestions on how to bring baseball to Minnesota. I'm like, this is awesome, So, and the interviews were great. I told this one before. Tim Laudner killed Herbeck. Laudner told me a story about Herbeck eating a bowl of Oreo cookies like 20 minutes before a game in Chicago against the White Sox. And Tom Kelly walks by, and he sees Herbeck eating these cookies. Like, Herbie, what the hell are you doing? And Herbie says, I'm hungry. If you want 2 hits out of me today, you'll just keep right on walking. I had never heard stuff like that before.
Yeah, that's great.
There's some funny parts. And when it got to the era in which, I was part of covering the team, I used my own recollections. There's a story about Joe Mauer in there that no one knows. That's in the Joe Mauer chapter about a game in Chicago when he hit a home run and the circumstances behind that home run that I think it's pretty interesting. So it was cool to kind of learn about how the origins of the team, and talking to Tony Oliva and talking to Jim Cott, and talking to just Twins players from the past and getting funny stories and getting the idea of what some of these people were like. So it was a hell of a project. And once again, I don't know if I do it again. It demands so much time and effort. And I have problems focusing on my job as a sports writer, let alone trying to drill down deep on a book. But it was quite an experience.
I'm sure. That sense of accomplishment to throw 90,000 words on a page and know that there are thousands and thousands of Twins fans that would love to know more about their favorite team. I can't wait to read. Is there a chapter on Paul Molitor? Because I am sure he related the anecdote that his first one-on-one interview as a major league player happened in the Brewers dugout in April of 1977, and he was interviewed by me. I'm assuming that's in there.
He must have forgotten that because that did not make the book. In addition to a chapter on Molitor, Paul Molitor also wrote the foreword to the book as well. So that was a great get to get him involved. So, but I thought he was representative of baseball in the Twin Cities, and he was around, and he was telling me like when he was a kid. Oh, I got to turn up that one. When he was a kid, he used to go to like a local drugstore and run into Earl Batty, because Batty lived in the Rondo neighborhood, and he grew up not far from there. And he used to, run into Earl Batty. He was just, mesmerized by the fact this star of baseball was like in the same room that he was.
Outstanding. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever fine books are sold, please check out Lavelle's book. That's a great accomplishment, my man. Congratulations for that. I'm excited to check it out. Well, we went a whole segment on that, which is great. Can I have you for one more to talk about some Twins? Talk some Twins this season, the last couple of games in particular, and some Bears talk as we get set a month or so and change from training camp. I appreciate it, my man. One more segment with Lavelle E. Neal III coming up right after these. We're back 10:19 on a Friday morning. Dave Sinykin in for BA. It's kind of a pseudo Friday football feast. Lots of NFL conversations throughout this 3-hour program. Update on the U.S. Open. We now have 7 players within 2 shots of the lead. Patrick Cantlay, your leader at 5 under. He tees off about 3 hours from now, as does Ludwig Oberg, who is a shot back at 4 under. Rory has gotten a shot back. He is now 4 under as well. Just 1 shot behind the lead. Xander Schauffele, who is playing with McIlroy and Scheffler, has also had a strong day. He's up to 3 under, just 2 shots back of the lead. As I mentioned earlier, Scheffler is 2 over for the day today, 3 over for the tournament. It makes you wonder if he got arrested this morning, because the only time he seems to struggle to break par or have a problem with his game is when something like that happens. I don't believe that's the case. As we effort getting Lavelle Neal back on the phone, we gave him a few minutes to hang up, do his thing, and we'll get him back in just a moment to chat Twins and Chicago Bears. We did talk about his new book on the history of Twins baseball, a coffee table style book filled with, I'm sure, amazing photos and 90,000 plus words from longtime Twins reporter and now columnist Lavelle E. Neal III, who is back. You're getting ripped on the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line. Not as much as I am for my Packer takes on a Friday football feast, as you might imagine, but someone is taking issues with the fact that you were ripping Carlos Correa's batting currently, and you also said that Royce Lewis wouldn't be back until the 4th of July. Your thoughts?
Well, the Correa thing, I'm not backing off of that one, because if you're making $33 million, you should be playing well on both sides of the ball. And as awesome as it is to watch him play defense, I didn't think he was producing enough on offense. So I mentioned that 3 days ago, and everybody went bananas and threw in OPS plus and all this other crap. I mean, I'm sorry. I need to see high level production. If you're making $33 million a year, you need to be the boss, right? And so, of course, as soon as I tweet that, he has a 5-hit game on Thursday, and then I think he had 2 or 3 more hits yesterday. He hit a home run as well.
Yep.
And also, I want to point out, this is rather, because I think he's on a ridiculous run in which he's 16 for like 33 or something over the last handful of games. Well, this is ironic because a few days ago, or about a week ago, there was I'm not going to name a publication, but they had a poll of who do you think is the most overrated player in baseball, and Correa finished third. So I think he saw that and must be responding to that. So I don't feel like I'm wrong on that one. That was that. Like I said, if you're going to pay that, if you're going to give him the bag like that, he's got to produce. And I'm sorry, he needs to be driving in runs. He needs to be hitting home runs. He needs to be hitting for a high average. I know the Major League Baseball batting average is like 240 or whatever. So when he's batting 270 or 280, that's great. I'm sorry, he's got to be a stud. And I just hadn't seen it up to this point. And this happened a couple of years ago when he was in August, and I think he batted like 150 in August, and I ripped him, and all of a sudden he started hitting in September. So
you're his
maybe
motivator.
I need to just keep ripping him.
I think so. Yeah, he responds.
As far as the Royce Lewis thing, I didn't make that crap up. People were telling me it's going to be July, and someone told one of our beat writers August. So he apparently he healed quicker than they anticipated, and props to him. But when you tear a quad muscle off the bone, that takes a while. I had a buddy who just injured his quad trying to put his dock in, and he's in the middle of a 6-month recovery. So that's something you just can't mess with. So the fact he was able to bounce back, props to him. But I didn't make that crap up. People told me that. So I'm just setting the record straight here.
Well, if you're going to err on that side rather than, he'll be back by Father's Day, and then we don't see him until August 1st, and now we're ripping you for that. At least we get the benefit of seeing him play sooner than we expected. So I think you're okay on that count.
Thank you very much. And you're right, because the Twins historically have said, it'll just be a couple weeks, and next thing you know, it's like 3 months.
Exactly.
So this is one of the rare instances in which he beat their predictions.
Last night was sort of the perfect Twins game for fans. You had a strong pitching performance from Joe Ryan, who goes 7. I don't think anybody got to second base after the home run that gave the A's the quick and very short-lived 2-0 lead. But then when your offense is really led by Correa and Lewis and Buxton, oh my. Well, the fact they're all in the lineup on the same day is a win. And then when they can combine for 8 hits and 5 ribbies and 4 runs, that's a perfect kind of Twins kind of game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was talking about this on the Chin Music podcast with me and Roy Smalley and Jim Suhan. The Twins had been apoplectic over the lack of left-handed hitting on the team because they thought that was going to be a strength coming into the season. They had Eduard Julian coming back. They had Kirilloff healthy, and they had Matt Wallner, who impressed in his debut a year ago. And all 3 of those guys are now in Fort Myers. I'm sorry, all 3 of those guys are now in St. Paul.
Yeah.
Just because the teams have adjusted to them or they haven't adjusted fast enough, and it's just been ugly. So if you look at the Twins, I looked it up yesterday, left-handed hitters against right-handed pitching, the Twins have a 701 OPS, and that's not good. It's not good. So the lefties have let them down, and so they're trying to adjust for that. And you're seeing Correa's in a hot streak now. Buxton, I'm telling you, I've got more evidence on Buxton about coming back from that knee surgery. I don't know if he's comfortable yet, using his bottom half, but he only has 3 home runs. And there's something about him and his bottom half that's not triggering the power that he has shown in the past. And maybe this is partially because of bad habits he developed last year when trying to play with that bad knee, or maybe he's just trying to break through the hump. Maybe some scar tissue needs to be taken care of, but he's not at full force. So it was encouraging to see what he did yesterday, and maybe he's hitting a hot streak as well. Correa has woken up after my criticism, or either that or seeing his name on the list of most overrated players in baseball. And Jose Miranda, who people thought was gone and forgotten, has made adjustments, and he's been functional. So he's in the lineup. And now Austin Martin's been called up for Kirilloff. It's to try to add some offensive punch. But left-handed hitting is going to be an issue going forward. A lot of that's going to have to fall on Kepler's lap here. He needs to get on another hot streak. But the last 2 days have been encouraging. The City, big picture here, the Twins are 0-6 against the Yankees. They're 0-5 against Cleveland, and they're 0-3 against Baltimore. And they've got to prove that they can beat top-flight competition to be relevant. I can't see Cleveland continuing to play 667 baseball. I think that's unsustainable for that squad. So they're going to come back to earth a little bit. The Twins have a bunch of favorable matchups going into the All-Star break. This is a big stretch for them. They need to play well and play really well and dominate to get back in the race for the division title. I know they're in a wild card slot right now, but we haven't seen this team play well consistently. They've been hot and they've been cold. They started off terrible. They went 13-7. Then they got cold again. They just ended this losing streak in Pittsburgh, and now it looks like they're getting hot again. They got to even this stuff out, and they've got to play consistently well and try to overcome Kansas City and Cleveland in the division.
We're talking with noted author and baseball historian Lavelle E Neal III, who obviously covered the Twins for years and years, and we're getting close to All-Star break and trade deadline, and I know it's way too early to discuss the old buyers or sellers, but as you said, they're 7.5 games out of the Central. Wild card might be a stretch. The Yankees and Orioles certainly look like playoff teams. What you mentioned left-handed hitting. Where else reasonably could this team make a move to impact trying to catch up to or pass the Royals and Guardians?
Well, I mean, I think the pitching staff has been functional. I think Joe Ryan's taken the next step in his development. I think Ober has been solid. Pablo Lopez has got to get back to what he was doing last year, definitely, to get them going. And Simeon Woods Richardson has been the shock of the year because I don't think he has strikeout stuff, but it's working for him the way he pitches. And Paddock, to me, is pitching like a guy coming back from Tommy John. And he's going to have days when he's great. He's going to have days when he's awful. His issue is I think he puts so many pitches over the middle of the plate. And a lot of times, the sharpness of your stuff and your command are the last things to come back as you work your way back through Tommy John. And so that's my issue with him. The Twins cannot afford any injuries to that rotation because that means they're going to bring back Louis Varland, who's still trying to incorporate a changeup. And after Louis, it could be a prospect like David Festa. And if they get in the jam, it could be the return of Randy Dobnak. I mean, it could be. So I don't know if they could find some rotation depth out there because pitching is such a premium. Can they find a bat? Where would you put him? Would you put him at first base? But right now it's like Miranda and Carlos Santana. Is there an outfield bat you can get? Maybe. But I don't expect the Twins to do much before the deadline. I think they do a lot of talking, but I don't know where they can find the right fit going forward. Health and definitely in a bullpen. Brock Stewart is an awesome reliever. He can't stay healthy. We have no idea what Justin Topa can do. He was good with the Seattle Mariners last year. He's injured. They get those guys back. That can even strengthen the bullpen even more. I feel bad for Caleb Thielbar, the pride of Randolph, Minnesota, who's going through struggles right now. And Caleb's 37, and he's been great for several years. It's a great story. Someone, leaving baseball for a while and coming back to produce, that's awesome. But he's really struggling right now. So I don't know if the Twins will be looking for a left-handed reliever before the deadline as well, just to kind of strengthen some stuff here. But everybody thought that this Twins team had the deepest roster in the division going into the season. I don't know if they have the best player in the division. Correa's playing like it right now. Buxton used to be it, but a lot of people think that Bobby Witt is probably the best player in the division for the Kansas City Royals, and I guess Jose Ramirez would not be far behind with Cleveland. But in terms of depth, that's where the area that the Twins are supposed to show their promise at, and it has not happened. So there's going to have to be a collective step up in class here with the squad.
Let's close with a minute or two on your favorite football team. You had a chance now to see Caleb Williams in a uniform on the field, not necessarily in pads, but throwing the rock around. I've seen a couple videos where he threw some ducks to Keenan Allen and all that. What are your instant early impressions of your new rookie quarterback?
Everything's going, as well as it can for preseason. You can't really get fired up of watching guys who are throwing to receivers who are being guarded by air. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you can only take so much out of these moments, but he's got an arm. He's saying all the right things. There's no indications of any complaints against him. I was just worried because at USC there was some diva moments with him that made me concerned, but those haven't popped up yet. I'm going to write a column about this. I actually think that J.J. McCarthy's in a better situation than Caleb because he doesn't have to come in and be the man. Yeah. Darnold's going to start. Caleb has to come in and be the man, and that's a lot of responsibility. Playing for a team in a city that has had horse bleep quarterback play for decades, and everybody's looking at him to be the savior. And also, he has really good receiving talent in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, and a solid tight end in Cole Kmet, and the return of Mercedes Lewis, former Packer.
Yeah, 40-year-old Mercedes Lewis.
He's got weapons. DeAndre Swift at running back.
Yep.
He's got weapons. If the Bears' offense doesn't thrive, everybody's going to look at him. And so there's going to be a lot on his shoulders this year. I still think this Bears team can win 10 games, at least. I still remember last year when they blew a fourth-quarter lead at home against Denver and blew a fourth-quarter lead at Detroit. They had the Lions beat in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And Luke Getsy just went out of his mind with stupid play calls, and that cost him the game. So he's gone. We got a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, great weapons. I want to see it work out, and I'm hoping the Bears win 10 games and be in the conversation for a playoff spot.
So you jumped on my final question because I'm looking at all the win totals in the North, and the Bears right now, I believe, are 8.5. Sounds like you are rushing to the nearest casino in a state where you can bet on sports and taking the over for your favorite squad.
Where are they at, 8.5?
Yep.
Are they 8.5?
Yes, they are 8.5.
Okay, what are the Vikings?
7.5 is last I saw.
I can't see every team in the division winning at least 8 games.
No, they won't. They won't.
It's an intriguing division,
Yep.
because of the quarterbacks, because Jordan Love is better than any of us thought. J.J. McCarthy will be starting for the Vikings by the end of the year. And you have your buddy in Detroit, and you have Caleb Williams in Chicago. So it's a very interesting division this year. But I don't know many divisions in football in which they have all 4 teams winning at least 8 games based on Vegas spreads or suggestions.
No, I think last year AFC North was seen as the strongest division, and it still looks really strong. But I think the general consensus is the NFC North is the most competitive, where it might be 3-4 games top to bottom, first and last place. For the record, I'll take under 8.5 wins for your Chicago Bears. Learning curve. You mentioned the diva quality to your quarterback, which may not be fair, but he's got a kind of a different personality, and I want to see how he does handle the pressure, as you said, of being seen as the savior for a franchise that's never had a 4,000-yard quarterback, 30 touchdowns. I mean, it's been abysmal. That's a good word. So if he can handle all of that and lead his team to 8 or 9 wins, you should be very bullish to a coin.
I just want to point out one thing.
Yeah.
After the Bears traded for Montez Sweat, the Bears were a top 5 defense like the last handful of games before in the regular season. Mm-hmm. So the defense has a pass rush now, and they have young guys in the secondary who continue to get better. So defensively, I can see the Bears taking another step forward, and that will make it even easier on the offense. And apparently, we have the greatest punter in the history of football for the University of Iowa, and it's going to pimp opponents in the 5-yard line all day long.
He might have been the second most famous person in Iowa City after Caitlin Clark. That punter.
No kidding.
So, well, let's just hope he has lots of opportunities to show us just how good he is. And he's on the field quite a bit for your Chicago Bears. Lavelle, I appreciate the extended time today. Good luck with the book. What is the title of the book?
It's called The Franchise, A Curated History of the Minnesota Twins.
Written by our friend Lavelle E Neal III, available wherever you find books. Get it for Father's Day. It's the perfect Father's Day gift. Thanks, Lavelle. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks for your time, my friend.
Thanks, City. Take care.
Lavelle E. Neal III. Read his stuff, of course, at Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. We'll come back, and let's turn our attention continue with the National Football League. I want to chat about these schedules and the win totals in the NFC North. Bears are 8.5, Vikes are 7.5, Packers are 9.5, Lions are 10.5. Are they all going over? Are they all going under? We'll chat about that on a Friday football feast on the Fan.
Get your golf on. Join the Common Man this Saturday, June 15th. That's tomorrow at On the Green Indoor Golf in Blaine for a live broadcast of Tee to Green. Stop by 10 to noon. Meet Common, check out the simulators, enjoy great food, drinks, register for great prizes, including free and BOGO Bay time. For more info, over to KFAN.com. See your calendar.
All right, back at 10:44. It's the Friday football feast. Sinykin in for PA on this Friday, the eve of Father's Day weekend. U.S. Open update. Patrick Cantlay still alone at 5 under. He tees off at 125. Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, and Ludwig Åberg all 4 under. Just watched Scotty Scheffler on the 14th hole, a par 5. He's just off the green, but he's hitting his third shot from the tumbleweeds like it's natural bunker time. And the ball landed right where he hit it from. Like it went up toward the green and rolled back down. So Scotty now hitting his 4th shot on the par 5 14th, and he is 3 over for the tournament. And right now the cut line's 4 over. So the world's number 1 struggling at Pinehurst, number 2, but a pretty star-studded leaderboard. His playing partner, Xander Schauffele, his ball was right next to Scheffler's in the natural waste bunker. He's 3 under and now 2 shots back, having a strong day. He's 10 under on the par 5s. And he needs to not follow what his playing partner just did, because you got to get it up the hill and then you got to stop it. Are you ahead of me? Because, yep,
there it goes.
Coming right back to him. That is unbelievable.
That's tough. That's a shot that I'd make.
Scheffler and Schauffele's balls were right next to each other, and they both hit, and they're still right next to each other in the waste bunker.
By the way, another thing to follow this weekend, one of us, Frankie Sappin, the third.
Stillwater's own.
Well, yes, Stillwater's own. He has a Vikings bag right now. The Vikings just tweeted about it. That his golf bag is Vikings themed. So, but he's one of us. And by the way, he's 1 over for the tournament. He's hanging. That's T31, but he's through 9. He's got a birdie putt here on hole 10. So he's
lurking. Outstanding. That's outstanding to be 1 over.
If he makes the cut, that's huge.
Fantastic. And I watched a lot of it yesterday, and they showed a number of his shots. He was under par for a while.
Yeah.
In his opening round.
He had 1 double bogey today, and that's what he was 1 under to start. He got to 1 under today, and then he had a double to put him 1 over. But he's still hanging around.
You'll be happy to know Schauffele's second shot did reach the green. He's probably 10 feet now for par on a par 5. And then these holes at Pinehurst, the par 5s are where you have to make your money, because the par 4s and 3s are just brutal. I mentioned briefly when I was talking to Lavelle, you may have caught it, that I was the very first person to have a one-on-one interview with Paul Molitor his rookie year, 1977. And it made me think during the break, well, if anybody caught that, they might think I'm really old. Because that was, 23, it's 47 years ago. Like, how old is Sinykin, for God's sake, if he's interviewing Molitor in April of 77? But I was a sophomore in high school at the time. So I was doing it for the old Tower Times newspaper, Whitefish Bay High School in Wisconsin, suburb of Milwaukee. And I got lucky. I didn't get lucky, but my folks were very friendly with Bud Selig, who was owner of the Brewers. So he arranged for me to be able to do that in the dugout during batting practice one day in April, where you may remember Molitor wasn't even supposed to be playing that season. I think he had only played like A-ball, like 50 or 60 games. He was the phenom, but he hadn't paid his dues in the minors, and he wasn't expected to start right away. But Robin Yount was holding out because he wanted more money, and he was threatening to be a pro golfer. And so when Yount held out, Molitor got a chance, and they basically couldn't keep him off the field. He was that good. So it was just one of those moments for me at that age. I was baseball was my first love, and I couldn't be more excited to be in the Brewers dugout. And I'll never forget Sal Bando and another Brewer whose name escapes me were kind of poking fun at Molitor, I think, for being interviewed by a kid. Like, okay, you finally got an interview and you got this kid talking to you. But what I remember most is I wrote the article and I sent it to him and he wrote me back. And I still have the little note he wrote back, and I've since met him and we chatted about it. It was my first media moment was with Paul Molitor, which is pretty sweet. Meanwhile, do you see Scheffler's shot?
Brutal.
He was so freaked out by the ball coming back to his feet that he sent it all the way across the green, and that's for par.
Yeah.
So he's got 80 feet for bogey, and that might not be an automatic two-putt. This might be the double, is the triple bogey, the double circle, or is it the where they kind of shade the number in a little bit?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but he's suddenly in trouble of not playing this weekend. And for a new father, with a new baby boy, maybe he wants to be home for Father's Day.
Do you like when the course eats him up like this?
I love it.
Okay.
Yes, I absolutely love it. I remember I was doing some fill-in work in Milwaukee, PGA weekend, and it was like 20 under, and I made that comment, like, a major should not be a 20 under course. Give me a U.S. Open where the rough is 8 inches deep, and if you don't hit the fairway, it's a penalty. And, I mean, the greens here are absurd. Like, you need a landing spot sometimes of like a 3-foot circle. And if you don't hit that 3-foot circle, you might be rolling off the green. I do enjoy seeing them struggle. I understand why people want birdies, want people firing at pins and showing their brilliance. But maybe as a guy who's been playing for 45 years and have struggled every one of them, it, for me, gives me some sense of balance, seeing the world's best players brought to their knees by a U.S. Open course.
One more U.S. Open question, more of a golf question. Are you Team Rory or Team Cantlay? And I have this goes without saying. But
not even close.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wanted to give you the...
Team Rory, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Cantlay is like watching paint dry. He's just... I have a thing about slow players and slow play, and I've played with a bunch of slow players in my life. We all have, right? The guy that thinks he's a pro.
5 practice swings.
The waggle. Or on the green, he's like standing like they do with 2 feet with the ball between you, like you're seeing the line. He's going behind the ball. He's going in front of the ball. No, get up there and hit the ball. And that's why I really like this kid, Oberg. He's really quick. He just gets up there and hits. And I'm a guy, I don't even take a practice swing. I don't necessarily advocate that if that's what you want to do. Everybody should take a practice swing. I'm fine with that. But one's enough. And I just don't happen to do it because I'm afraid that's going to be my good swing.
I stopped taking practice swings because I get too much in my head. Because then if something fell off about the practice swing, then I overcompensate for the real swing, and then it all goes to bleep.
Keep your mind as empty as humanly possible. 4 players now, 1 shot back as Detry. The one, non-superstar type name has crept up. He's 4 under now as well, joining McIlroy, DeChambeau, and Oberg. I mentioned heading into the break, win totals. It's pretty compacted in the north. 10.5 the Lions, 9.5 the Pack, 8.5 the Bears, 7.5 the Vikes. So are you mortified that the Vikes have a lower over-under total than the Bears? Is that fair? I think it's ridiculous myself. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears finished ahead of the Vikes. But heading into the season, they're not starting a rookie quarterback. The Bears are. The Bears may have a solid defense, as Lavelle was talking about, but I think the Vikings defense is going to be much improved. I mean, Flores did it with mirrors. Now he's got some actual talent. They brought in, some serious talent on the defensive side of the ball. Now, there's still questions up front and maybe on the back end a bit, but I think the linebacker play with Greenard and Van Ginkel and Cashman, those are 3 really nice additions. And that, to me, is enough talent for Flores to, feel good about what he's got. And they think they've upgraded at cornerback. That's obviously a key position to watch, as well as D-line. But I think all 4 defenses in this division are going to be better than people think. Chicago, certainly, with the Sweat addition, showed that they've got some nice pieces. The Lions remade their secondary with 2 really nice cornerbacks with their first 2 picks. They added another defensive back via free agency. And I think Green Bay, by default, moving on from Joe Barry and bringing in Jeff Hafley, the former BC coach, who was a defensive coach for the Niners and the Browns. Green Bay adding Xavier McKinney, a top 5 safety, to a position of serious need. And the 2 second-round picks, Edgerrin Cooper, first linebacker drafted, who's already turning heads, the Don Hudson Center with what he's been doing. And Javon Bullard, the former Georgia Bulldog, who was the MVP of the championship game 2 years ago, to add to that safety position. I think Green Bay's defense is going to be much improved. There's much talk about the quarterbacks. As always, there should be. But I think the defenses for all 4 teams are going to be maybe a little better than people think. So who goes over and who goes under the win totals? I've got the Bears are 8.5. I've got the Bears going under 8.5. The Vikes are 7.5. I'll take over, but it's all about the start. I mean, we've talked about it. They're favored in week 1 against the Giants by 1.5, which is, almost a coin flip, but they are favored. They won't be favored in their next 6 games, I don't think, right? Niners at home, Texans at home, at Green Bay, Jets in London. That might,
well, it depends on who's playing quarterback for the Jets.
Correct. If Rodgers is playing, though, I would assume the Jets are favored in that game. It may not be more than 2 or 3 points, but I would think they're favored. Then the Lions at home and at the Rams. I mean, that's a brutal start. I understand it gets easier, but if they don't get off to a quick start, and that might be asking a lot with a new quarterback, granted a veteran, but a new one, and no Hawkinson and a bunch of new pieces on defense. I mean, if the Vikes are 2-5, it might be tough to get to 8 wins, but I'm going over with the Vikes, under with the Bears. Where are you with those two?
I tend to agree. It's just both of those teams have just total mystery boxes for quarterbacks. And I get that Darnold has been around, but he's never had a situation. The glass half full spin for Vikings fans is this is the best situation he's ever had by a mile. So let's see what he has. He could be this, diamond in the rough that's just been in bad situations on bad football teams, or he stinks. One of the two. You have no idea. Caleb Williams, he could stink. As Lavelle mentioned earlier, he's got to be the guy. How does he respond to that? Is he good enough? Does he make reads? Can he make reads when the real bullets are flying? You just never know. So by that, I'd have to go on the surroundings. I would take, in my opinion, I'd rather take a guy for this season, predicting this season's win totals. I'd rather take the guy who's been in the NFL. So I'd probably go the same. I'd probably go over for it's over 7.5.
About right. 7, 8, maybe 9 wins for those 2 teams, I think. Darnold's been on 3 teams, right? Jets, Panthers, Niners. Are those his 3 teams?
Yeah. And he only had a cup of coffee in San Fran.
Understood. Right? Yeah. But the point is, 3 teams have said, nope, seen enough.
Correct.
We'll move on. I don't know how many quarterbacks have resurrected a career on their 4th team. I'm sure someone will come up with one, but nobody jumps to mind that the 4th team, nobody ever says the 4th time's a charm, right? They don't say that. Yeah. There's a reason they say the 3rd time's a charm.
But he's never had Justin Jefferson. He's never had Aaron Jones.
This is true.
Never had TJ Hawkinson.
Well, he may not have him either. We'll see
there's that.
How long it takes TJ to get ready. Bears 10.5. I'm going to go under. I think they're going to win about 10 games. I think, they've remade their defense, but they're not sneaking up on anyone. A lot of primetime games. I could be talked into over. Maybe they win 11, but 10-7 feels about right. Green Bay is 9.5. They won 9 last year. So you're asking me, can they win one more game than they won a year ago? You know what I'm going to say. I think they're going to win 10 games. I actually have them 11-6 when I went through the schedule. Oh my gosh. I know. PST candidate Sinykin thinks the Packers are going to go over their win total. I think 10 or 11. Again, we're all assuming health for your quarterbacks when you play this game. But, I think the offense takes another step. The defense is better. My biggest concern, does this count as one of my 3 times I could mention my team in 3 hours, is the kicker position. I worry, again, you have a kicker that's been good for a long time. You finally move on because he's like 40, and it's hard to find the next guy. They've got Greg Joseph in the house. Battling Anders Carlson, and they've got Jack Podelsny, former Georgia guy. It's kind of like when they say when you have 3 quarterbacks, you have none. When you have 3 kickers, You have none. It's very possible that the kicker for Green Bay this year is not even on the roster yet. And for a team that I think's going to be in most of their games, we saw Carlson miss key kicks against the Niners in the playoffs. It's just, that's one spot you don't want to have to worry. And I know the Vikes are in the same boat with a rookie or a new kicker.
Yeah.
It just, it's not very reassuring. When you feel good about your squad, but you have no idea what your kicker is going to give you. I hope they find a guy that just steals the job and runs away with it. We'll pause here. We'll step away from football for a moment. I want to talk Wolves draft. Less than 2 weeks out. I know it's not draft week. I know it's not tomorrow, but I don't sit in this chair that often. It is NBA season still, at least for another few hours. And then the draft will be upon us. So I've got some thoughts on who I would target if I were the Wolves at 27 and 37, and we'll dance around that subject when we return on The Fan.
Umpire. Time. Okay, Sinykin, that's 2 Packers talkers, okay? I don't know about you, but we need to get you through 9 segments today. If you screw this up and blow all your Packers talkers before the end of the show, I don't care. I'm going to pull you, and I'm going to bring in Russo. You got that? You have 1 left. Don't screw this up like your awful football team did in Cincinnati on Sunday, okay? All right, let's go. Come on.